You're welcome back. It's still Business Morning here on Channels Television. Let's take a trip to the world with Laddie Williams.
Right,
Laddie?
thank you so much, Amy. Yes, on this trip, at this point, it's all about what to expect this week and what's going to drive sentiment in the market.
Before you go on, you can't escape the Alaska meeting. Were you disappointed?
So many reactions. You know, some people saw it differently. Some said,
how did you see it?
I just felt
Who are you?
Trump was just a little different.
Laddie, do you think that there's something special going on between President Trump and President Putin? Because
I feel
once President Trump meets President Putin, we see another side of him.
Yeah, because
even in negotiations.
Nobody talked about Putin's dressing, even though he did wear a suit. Unlike the previous one, but I guess, And
now the pressure goes back to President Zelensky. I think they are meeting today.
They're meeting today.
Yeah, to talk about, how to compromise and give out some of their part of their country for peace to reign. I mean, I didn't see this coming.
It's looking quite tough, at this point, because we know Zelensky's stance at this point. He's not willing to let go of any
no normal person would want
Nobody would agree to that. But we're just hoping for the best, and markets are definitely going to be looking out for what happens, with those meetings.
Meeting today.
Yeah, but also we'll just see central bankers meet. It's a pivotal moment for, global finance as central bankers, top economists, policymakers, they're gathering for the long-anticipated Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium in Wyoming. That's from August 21st to 23rd. The annual retreat tackling this year's theme is labor markets in transition, demographics, productivity, and macroeconomic policy. It will serve as a stage for Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's keynote address, expected to signal the Fed's next moves in a fraught economic landscape. Also, this week, markets will be closely watching as two major economies, as the UK and Canada, they're going to release their CPI data. That's for July. For Canada, the inflation data is slated for release tomorrow, with economists expecting a modest uptick from 1.9% to around 2.0%, reflecting firmer energy prices and base effect dynamics. Then also, MPC decision, it marks a pivotal moment for global monetary policy. Two major central bankers are moving in different directions in Beijing. The People's Bank of China, PBOC, they continue to chart a cautious path, holding rates steady and reaffirming a moderately loose policy stance despite signs of economic softness, including falling investment and credit contraction. Meanwhile, New Zealand, all eyes are fixed on the Reserve Bank of New Zealand ahead of its scheduled rate decision. That's coming on Wednesday, August 20th. A near unanimous Reuters poll and shadow board forecasts about 25 basis point cut to the official cash rate, lowering it to 3% as inflation cools and labor market pressures. That's growing at this point. But let's look at what's happening today. Thailand's economic growth that slowed in the second quarter of 2025, with GDP rising 2.8% year-on-year, down from 3.2% in the previous quarter. The Q2 figure came in slightly above the consensus estimate of 2.5%, but below the previous quarter's growth rate in quarter-on-quarter terms. Growth eased to 0.6% from 0.7% in the first quarter. Exports remained the main economic driver, expanding by 12.2% year-on-year, marginally lower than the 12.3% recorded in the first quarter. Then to the digital asset, we see Bitcoin, that's below $116,000. Today's reversing sharply from last week's record highs as fading expectations for aggressive Federal Reserve easing and heightened geopolitical risks that weighed on investor risk appetite. The world's largest cryptocurrency last traded 2% lower at about $115,664. Then we see Tesla, they're offering discounts of up to 40% to car leasing firms in the UK to shore up sliding sales. That's according to the Times, as Elon Musk, the electric vehicle maker, grappling with a rapidly shrinking market share across the globe. And that takes us to the UK now. Let's get expectations on the data front. We have Juliana Olayenka, our London Bureau Chief, now joining us. Great to have you on the show. Happy New Week.
Happy New Week, Laddie.
All right, let's start with data expectations. It seems the CPI data coming this week is quite important because we've seen inflation that's been rising in recent months in the UK. How are you seeing it?
It has been rising. I think it's quite a busy economic data outlook for the week. And as you know, I just heard you and Nini talking about the volatile global backdrop that all of this data is going to be tied to, and that is the coalition of the willing, those European leaders who are on their way to Washington for all important crunch talks. This is not just geopolitics. This has got so much to do with the global economy and how we are going to be functioning with our energy over the next coming months. So the backdrop is all pegged to that. But on Wednesday, quite rightly, as you said, we are getting July's inflation data. Now, headline CPI is expected to rise to about 3.8%, which is still above the Bank of England's target rate of 2%. Of course, we know they've been doing so much work to try and get that inflation down, but we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. On Thursday, attention is going to shift to public finances, and we've got borrowing data coming in, and it's forecast to be just above £2 billion. This is part of the headache that Chancellor Rachel Reeves has got as she is kind of drafting her August statement. And then Friday, we're going to be looking at consumer strength because we've got retail figures coming out, and that's a bellwether really for how the British High Street is operating under interesting times where the cost of living is still battering. But as I said, what happens in America from 5 p.m. local time onwards is definitely going to shape some of this data that's going to be coming this week, Laddie.
Well, I guess we can expect some, volatility there. But there's also some chatter over the weekend in the UK about possibility of a wealth tax in the UK. And Juliana, I know you're a very wealthy lady. What are the reactions to these talks?
It's quite interesting. It's a fierce debate. It's always been a fierce debate about wealth tax. And even those who are not so wealthy always feel slightly put off by even the suggestion of it. But, it's back in the spotlight because we know that there's this fiscal hole that since Labour has been in power in Britain, which has been just over a year now, we are not seeing those economic benefits and the uplift in society that Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, had forecast. So they are looking for money. And even last week, Gordon Brown, her predecessor, her pre-predecessor, weighed in on perhaps lifting gambling tax, hiking gambling tax. Now wealth taxes have been put into the mix. And basically what this means is that ultra high net worth individuals with assets above £10 million, more likely you, not me, Laddie, they would basically be asked to provide generous amounts of tax to the coffers on pensions and property, and apparently this could save the Treasury about £80 billion a year. But again, we'll just have to wait and see how that goes. It's being mulled. Usually they put this in the press to gauge public reaction, and they take a stance from there.
All right, I guess let's see if the rich will have to pay more, going forward right there in the UK. But we see Jackson Hole Economic Policy Symposium. That's hot this week. How are UK investors bracing for comment, coming from the symposium?
It's quite interesting. As you were saying at the top there, historically, Jackson Hole is the venue to signal major shifts in monetary policy. This is obviously going to be led by Jerome Powell, but things, we're not in a normal universe. We're in Trump's universe, right? So Jackson Hole is now secondary to what is going to be taking place in the Oval Office today with European leaders. It appears as if monetary policy is going to be determined from there, because we know that Jerome Powell also has a very fractured relationship with the president of the United States. But, his keynote is going to be very interesting when it's delivered on Friday. Is it going to be a note of resignation too? We're not sure. But I think really, Laddie, all markets are focused on the Oval Office and what is going to come from those talks. I don't know if you've seen that Trump's already put out some statements about Zelensky on Truth Social before he's even got there. So it's box office again, Laddie.
All right, we'll definitely be watching out for what comes out from there. Thank you so much, Juliana, for giving us the details.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there you have it. It's box office. According to Juliana there, I'm sure you have your popcorn ready to watch all that's going to play out this week.
You know, one thing Juliana said is we're living in a Trump world.
Yes, a Trump world.
Yeah. One day we'll be free.
Maybe.
All right, Ladi, thank you. Well, just before we go, last week was not a very positive one for Nigeria's stock market. The market lost 0.77%, and we lost the 146,000 level, went down to 144,000. The market cap closed around 91 trillion naira. Insurance stocks that become the darling of the market saw a lot of profit taking. They say that's normal. We wonder how long that will take. But that's it. On the program, the Business Morning at 1:30, Ladi will be back here to give you update from the world of business, especially the market, and other conversations are with you. I'm John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.